Hey, man, welcome everybody to this session of Off the Grid. I wanted to welcome today Canadian music producer Rove. Thanks for joining us, brother. Very excited to talk about your history and the Poke the Bear album that you released back in July. Um, Very pumped to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Absolutely. I'm looking forward to this.
Cool, man. Hey, let's start off really quick with just a quick introduction to yourself, maybe any crews that you represent, or just a story on how long you've been making music or how you got into music in general.
Yeah, for sure. My graffiti crews are CBS and Freightophiles. My music posse is Saskatoon Rap Music. The members of that crew are Chaps, Gumshoe Strut, Id Obelisk, Nalto, Staple Mouth, Nablonsky, Parapoet, Dren, and Grain Bin, and myself. And
That's right.
yeah,
Yeah, you
those are the
guys got
crews.
a monster crew, man. I love the music out of your camp.
Thank you.
Well, hey, man, like as you started your music journey, and so I saw like in some discussions that you had just started producing music about 2 years ago. I don't know if that was just
Yeah,
yeah, just an estimate, but is that about accurate?
yeah, that's about right. I didn't start that long ago. 2000, what is it? 2003 now? Yeah, 2001, the summer during the pandemic. Um, I never produced music before that. I didn't really think it was something I'd be able to do.
Yeah.
I always, loved music, obviously, and paid attention to music, and would really listen to the beats. Big fan of the beats, and I had somebody pay me for some work with an MPC. It just sat around collecting dust until I came across a YouTube video where somebody had hooked it up with GarageBand and used it
Uh,
as a MIDI controller. I'm a very visual person, so for me to be able to use it in that kind of format,
uh-huh.
it made sense. Just the MPC itself with the disc and load and everything like that, for me, was too cumbersome. It wasn't something I felt I could do. But once I could hook it up, with the DAW and use it visually that way, I was like, okay, all right. And then, yeah, I just started making beats right away, and it kind of came together pretty fast.
Yo, that's crazy. Did you say that you got paid for some work with an MPC?
Yeah, a good friend of
Oh,
mine
that's wild,
that
man.
he got in a
Oh,
bit of
dude, that,
trouble. I
that's
helped him out with, and he had this MPC he never used, so he just
oh
shipped it to
man.
me. Yeah, and it just, I tried reading the tutorials on it, and I was,
Yeah.
I had all the discs and stuff, and it just wasn't intuitive to me. So it just kind of sat there for, 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. It's like dudes like they make beats. They normally don't start at Jedi level, so that's wild
Yeah,
that you got the MPC right off the bat, man.
yeah, no, that
And
was great.
as we go into your albums too, I mean, 2 years, that's pretty amazing feat, man. Like your beats on there are ridiculous, and I've got some specific stuff to ask you, but I'm amazed, man. That's amazing, man. 2 years only.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I put out quite a bit of stuff. When I
Yeah.
look at what I've done, I don't know how I did it, kind of thing. It's hard for me to even sit back and think about making some of those beats. I really don't have any recollection of it happening.
Yeah, it's gonna be scary watching you like 10 years down the line, man, to see what your beats sound like. But that's amazing, man. Well, I assume too you've always been like a music fan. And so I'm curious as far as musical influences, who kind of inspired you to make beats or who were you listening to before you produced music?
Right, like I guess musically, my influences, kind of broadly speaking, has been West Coast underground rap. I know
Nice.
for a lot of us, that's kind of our, you know, where it's at. Um, I have a hard time keeping up with new artists because I'm still trying to go back and find the back catalogs of
That's
my
right.
favorite underground rappers. That maybe put out a hand-to-hand CDR back in the day, and you know
Yeah.
through various blogs or whatever, you're able to track that stuff down now through Discogs. Um, as far as production wise, I guess my influences have been, like D-Ski, Drum
Yep.
Machine Mike, Omid, Chaz Emphatic from San Francisco Street Music,
Nice.
Televangel, Factor Chandelier, Zavala. That's kind of who, when I hear that kind of production, that's kind of like, for me, they have a very distinct sound,
Yep.
and I always look forward, whatever projects they're involved in, I wanna hear.
That's awesome, man. What about rapping wise? Any favorite rappers off the bat? It's always a hard question for me to answer, but any
Yeah.
standouts?
Um, who am I listening to these days? Um, I guess the 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 things that I'm checking out lately are, well, I guess I'll start with kind of who I started listening to.
Okay.
I guess in the prairies you don't really think rap isn't at the forefront, and especially in the 80s it wasn't, but I was a big fan of Maestro Fresh West when Symphony in Effect dropped in 1989.
Okay.
I listened to that album obsessively. After that, it was a while before there was much going on in Canadian rap
Yep.
that caught my attention. But when I was in high school, in 1996, Beat Factory Music in Canada dropped a compilation album called Rap Essentials Volume 1,
Okay.
which turned me on to a lot of dope Canadian MCs like
Nice.
Rascals, Concrete Mob, YOK, Danny O, Scales Empire, Ghetto Concept, to name a few.
Danny O is dope.
Yeah, and most of these rappers came up in the Toronto rap scene, which at the
Yep,
time
that's
had
right.
a very kind of underground, New Yorky kind of influenced sound.
Okay.
But as the Toronto sound got more commercial, I was kind of turned off by rap from kind of out east.
Yep.
But the Rascals, who came up in Vancouver, dropped an album the next year called Cash Crop. I think that dropped in '97.
Okay.
And I still play that album through,
Nice.
from time to time.
Hey man, I'll have to talk to you offline, man. I got to get some of these names, man. I'm always fascinated about music groups in other countries, and
Right.
Canada had dope too. Has Swollen members, and
Yeah.
I just learned about this dude on the West Coast, Mercules. You ever heard his music before?
Yeah, absolutely.
Holy
Mercury's
cow,
he's
he's
kind
pretty
of blown
sick.
up in Canada. Um, that's a certain kind of genre of music. I
Yep.
don't know. Some people call it like rigor rap, because it's kind of gritty and it's like
Oh,
working
okay.
man type stuff. And so, there's definitely that in Canada. There's a solid presence of that, and Mercury's is kind of at the top of that. Mercury's and like Snack the Ripper, those
Oh
kind of
man.
guys. Yeah.
Yeah, dope, man. I just ran into it. So awesome, man. Well, hey, for yourself, I know for me, when I was having to come up with a name in terms of rapping, it probably changed 50 times. But what about you, man? What's the story behind the name Rove? Was that the
Right.
first name you started with?
It's the second in '97. I decided to change my graffiti name. Um, I just grabbed the dictionary, just started flipping through it. I
Oh,
liked the letters Rove, and then
yep.
looked at the meaning. At the time I was just this punk kid with no direction, so it seemed fitting Rove to kind of aimlessly wander. So it just kind of stuck, and
I like
yeah,
it.
since '97.
Yeah, that's dope, man. I like how it looks when you get it all painted out. Yeah, it was a really dope name. So I was just curious. I didn't know if it was like your real name or what, but super dope.
Yeah,
Well,
thank
hey
you.
man, I know you represent Saskatchewan, and so what was the music scene like out there? Was it big or just kind of hey, you were just relying on what you were hearing from the West Coast and the East
Right.
Coast?
Well, I mean, Saskatchewan, it has, historically just a tremendous kind of music scene.
Okay,
Geographically, we're pretty isolated. We don't have a very big population either, but we have a kind of a long history of talented musicians, even non-rap wise.
okay.
Some of the notable people from Saskatchewan, some you may have heard of, some you haven't. Colin James, the Sheepdogs, Buffy St. Marie,
Oh
Coulter
wow,
Ball, Tom Jackson, Northern Pikes, Deep Dark Woods, Wide Mouth Mason, and the
wow.
big one, probably the most famous from Saskatchewan, is Joni Mitchell.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, she
Oh man.
actually went to my high school. So
Well, that's
not at the
crazy.
same time, but you know,
Yeah, right,
we
right.
were a few years apart there. But
Yeah.
we
Oh
actually
man, that's wild. I had no idea Joni Mitchell was from Canada.
yeah, you know, I don't think it's something she talks about too often. I think she has a bit of a disdain for the province for some
Oh
reason. But
man, gotta
yeah,
show some love for the roots. Well, hey,
yeah,
that's dope, man. So I love it. The background, crazy short 2 year turnaround, and then you come around 2 years later and you produce Poke the Bear, which you released back in July.
right.
And so, hey, I wanted to get into that album. And can you talk to me before the album happened? Did you have a vision to create an album, or were you just making tracks and
I
then
guess
saying,
the plan was to make an album, you know, that I would have wanted to hear 20 years ago. You know, and I think good underground rap is timeless, and that was kind of the sound I wanted to go for.
yeah,
Um, you know, there's a few underground rap compilations that heavily influenced me and
hmm,
introduced me to rappers that I haven't heard before, and so I would hear them on there, and I'd want to go find out who is this person, what have they put out. So for me, that's always the goal when I put together a compilation album is, you know, you're going to have some people on there you probably heard of, people you haven't, and then hopefully you're going to want to check out after you hear them.
yeah, absolutely. So that album had 18 tracks and the lineup was ridiculous, right? So did you have like all the beats done before sending them out to the MCs, or was it a very calculated process where like you knew you wanted to invite MC number one and you made just a specific beat pack for him? How did that work?
Yeah, so usually the beats are, you know, 80% done when I send them out.
Okay.
And then once I get the vocals back, I think that's kind of when the real magic happens and the song really comes together. But the way I usually work, you know, partway through a beat or at the start, I have somebody in mind.
Okay.
You know, maybe a couple, you know, this person, or this person would sound good on there. Or maybe even just one person. You know, there's one person I could hear on this and that's it. So that kind of helps me take the beat in the direction it needs to go. And then, you know, my limited understanding of how other producers work is they send a pack of beats out, you know,
Yep.
pick one, and then, okay, we'll go with that one. And I've never taken that approach
All right.
on any project so far. I tend to only work with people whose work I'm very familiar with. And
Okay.
so I'm confident when I send them a beat um, that it's something that they would like, but more importantly, something I believe they would, you know, kill and sound very good on.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the approach that I'm taking. I just never, you know, I hear them on it before, you know, before the beat's even done. It's like, yeah, this is for this person. And
Oh,
I have beats that are sitting there that, you know, I've reached out to a few people, they just
okay.
never got back to me. I just can't do anything with that beat because I can't hear anybody else on it.
Yep.
So it'll just sit there until I figure out what to do with it. But that's kind of been my approach.
No, that's pretty awesome, man. And I imagine too, like 18 different tracks, probably over 18 people working on this album. And so everybody's got different lives and things going
Right.
on. And so I was curious as I was going through this album, I was like, man, how long did it take to put this album together? Not everybody, got you the track back real fast, right? I assume that
Right.
everybody got it at different rates. And so how long did the album take to put together?
So it actually took less than a year. So
Wow.
yeah, I started it in the fall, probably last year around this time.
Okay.
And so my first album, if not now, dropped in August, and then I started Poke the Bear, you know, maybe a month later, and you know, it dropped in July. So the whole process took a little less than a year, but um, there were certain people I knew that take longer than others. So those are
Yep.
kind of the first beats that I focused on and got out.
Gotcha.
You know, there's guys like Rifleman that within 24 or 48 hours, you've got your track back. You know, and
Amazing.
it's not a throwaway verse either. You know,
No,
it's
he
heat. It's
killed it,
just
man.
some
He
people
smashed
operate
it.
that way. Yeah. So that was, and I mean, the more you work with people, the more you get to know them. And you know, some people are more hands-on with suggestions for what to do with the vocals or how to arrange the beat. You know,
Yep.
Paleface. he was very specific. I sent him the beat, and he kind of rearranged it the way that he felt he would sound best on it, and then
Oh,
sent me details of what he did to that. And so we kind of went back and forth and worked it until we got it. And that's how we work.
that's
So
dope.
that everybody's different, as you know, and
Yep.
so it's nice to have those differences and to get to work with people, in that way, in a way that works for both of us.
Well, that's sick, man. I love the collaborative process, and it's definitely it goes both ways. So it's good to hear that you're very open to that. I know sometimes some producers are like, man, I just want the beat like this, but that's
Right.
dope. I love it. Well, hey, man, I wanted to just jump into the tracks that you put together. And first, I want to say that I love the sound of the album as a whole. And
Thank
I
you.
thought all the beats meshed well together. And from start to finish, it was just a movie soundtrack to me. I really
Oh,
enjoyed it.
thank you. I really appreciate
Yeah.
it.
So it's funny when you mentioned too, it's like, hey, I wanted create an album that was needed like 20 years ago. I
Yeah.
was like, that's pretty accurate, man. This album was pretty dope, and I was thinking in my head like, oh man, this would be banging like 50 years later. So
Oh, yeah.
excellent work, man.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I guess the only kind of structure I had, picking the order of the songs is
Oh
it's
yeah,
necessary. So I mean, I guess the only real rule I had was it kind of started off with the slowest, kind of
okay,
heavy, slow, the
okay,
soul track, and it ended
that's
with the
right,
kind of heaviest, loudest track. So
dude.
hopefully it builds for the listener.
Dude, that's funny because the first point I was gonna bring up was that I love how you set off the album with Anacon MC Soul, right? So I know he's based out of Maine, and
Right.
as you mentioned too, sometimes I just don't get the chance to listen to other people's music, and I used to listen to Soul way back in the day. His Bottle of Humans album, big fan of, and so oh man, it was great, refreshing to hear somebody from my past. But that's what exactly I was gonna say. The beat was very melodic, and as I was going through it, I was like, oh, this is a perfect way to start the album, and it was
Yeah.
very indicative that I was getting ready to start a musical journey. So well done on track number one.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, that's good, man. So yeah, Poke the Bear. I thought it was the title track too for the album, and so yeah, good way to start it, man. Any story behind that track as you were putting that one together?
Well, Soul is somebody, and I heard the same kind of thing from a lot of people. Is, man, I used to listen to Soul. Obviously, he's Soul. Like most people in underground rap, they know who Soul is. They used to listen to Soul. Most people love Soul, and he was one of those MCs for me that I wasn't really paying attention to probably, for a good 10 years.
Okay.
And then a few years ago, I started, what's he been up to? And,
Yep.
he's cranking albums out. And
Oh, dude,
he's at the top of his game right now. So, uh,
absolutely.
and he's a nice guy. He's approachable. And, for my first album, there's a soul track on there. And, I was shooting for the top with some of these people like Soul. And I really had nothing to offer as far as check this out because I had nothing.
Yep.
And so he's one of those guys that took a chance on me. And for
Wow.
that song, the beat for me was it. Like I said, I have a hard time remembering what I was doing when I was making some of these beats. But for me, that's a beat that I don't know how or why I made that
Yeah.
because it sounds very different to me than a traditional rap beat. And when I sent it to him, he was like, "Oh yeah, oh yeah." He was like, "Okay,
Awesome,
okay."
man.
And then right away he was like, "Okay, I've got a hook for this." Like, yeah. And I'm like, "Okay, it's gonna be the title track," just because, the intro, it starts very low, and I
Yep.
suspect there's going to be a lot of people that are cranking the volume up at the start of that track because they think
Okay.
it is too low, and then
Yeah.
it hits, and it kind of just and
Yeah.
what Soul did with that, I had no idea how he was going to rap over it.
Oh man.
And when I got the vocals back, I was just, I couldn't stop listening to it.
Dude, yeah, it's a fire track. And
Yeah. And so it was fitting, he was on the first album. We brought him out for Summer Fling in Saskatoon this year.
that's right. I was gonna mention that. I was like, I think he was at at the album release party,
He
right?
was,
So,
yeah.
oh,
So
sheesh.
Soul came out and hung out for a few days. I got to DJ for him. He did an amazing set.
Oh man,
So
that's
sick.
wild.
Yeah.
Cool.
And so, and he hadn't, I think he said it's been like a decade since he rapped outside the country or something. So it worked really well. He was great to
Yeah.
hang out with.
Hey,
It was
where'd you guys do the Summer Fling album release party at? Was that on the East Coast or he came
we
out
just did it
to?
in Saskatoon.
Oh, super
Yeah.
dope, man.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, man, that's crazy. So you just sent him one beat, and that was the beat, right? Huh? Didn't
That
you didn't
was the
go through
beat. Yeah.
different track? Oh man, great.
Yeah.
And also forgot to ask you, do you do your own mixing and mastering too?
So my mixing at the start was kind of horrendous for the first album. But I got this guy Drum Machine Mike out of Ontario. Loves underground music, makes great
Yep.
music. Kind of underground rappy, electronic kind of music, but knows everybody in the underground rap scene. Works with them, makes amazing albums. So
Nice.
he was kind of a big mentor as far as the mixing goes.
Okay.
D-Ski, I would send D-Ski the tracks
Oh,
uh,
dude,
to mix,
he's
so he
mixing
would send me
everybody's
back.
stuff, man.
Yeah. So I mix it as good as I can, and then I know D-Ski's going to take care of it. So
That's right.
that's kind of my go-to. D-Ski's mixed all my stuff and mastered it. So I'm hoping that I've made it easier on him, you know,
Nice.
over the years.
Yeah.
But I do the best rough mix I can, and then I get it over to him, and I know it's in good hands.
Yeah, I know it's a big learning process, and I don't know whose album he's not mixing, right? I see his name on everything,
Absolutely,
man.
absolutely,
Yeah, he's touching all the dopest underground
yeah,
music. Period. So
for
right on.
sure,
Shout out to Deeski. He's so dope, man.
yeah.
Okay. Well, hey, man, we'll jump into the next track, the running track by SSG. That's probably one of my favorite tracks. I love the dude's delivery
Yeah.
and just and he's got like a hint of a sound like Most Def, but different delivery. But oh man, I love this
Yeah,
guy's
man.
music, man.
Chesky is somebody like since the beginning. Like I was put on to him. I don't know how many years ago.
Okay.
Must have been early 2000s, mid 2000s. My friend Jarrett put me onto him. He found some obscure kind of video he did, and I know Chesky was working with like the Plague Language guys, No 23 and those guys, and so
Yeah.
we would hear things here and there, and then I just had a feeling about him that this is somebody I needed to stick with. And
Whew.
so ever since back then, I've been checking him out. Uh, told Chaps about him. You gotta check this guy out. Chaps put Factor onto him, and they've made the best music together. And
Dope, man.
so
Is he from Canada too?
no, he's from Connecticut.
Connecticut. Okay.
Yeah, but I know he grew up in the Bay Area for a bit.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So he was, I think, kicking it with some of those anti-con guys. I know he's like a big Shapeshifters fan,
Okay.
Freestyle Fellowship, CVE, all that. And if you haven't checked out a lot of Chesky, I mean, check out the albums with Factor. They're
Okay.
beautiful. They're
I
beautiful,
gotta check
beautiful.
that.
And Chesky is like, he's not only one of the best rappers, just any genre of music that he tackles, he
Yeah.
does it very authentically, and he's so good. He's so good with that guitar. His
Wow.
live performances are amazing. He commands the crowd, has everyone's attention, is often
Yeah.
in the middle of the crowd with a circle around him, gives 110% every single time. I can't say enough good things about Chesky. And so for him to get on this beat and kill it the way that he did, it was an honor. He spends a lot of time in Saskatoon because Factor is here and they do work together. So
Okay.
we spent a lot of time hanging out. So it's great.
Yeah, that's dope. And you actually brought this point up earlier in the interview, and I actually have it in my notes too. Is that I love these mixtape albums or these compilations because you hear about some of the MCs that you don't get a chance to hear to, and he was one that I wasn't familiar with, and I was just blown away. His
Yeah,
track was crazy. So
yeah,
it's dope for us. So thanks for just kind of displaying his skill on that album. That was really
yeah,
dope.
absolutely. Yeah, I'll send you a few links to some tracks that I know. Like if you'll never go back. Once you hear these tracks, you'll be hooked. You'll be on the Chesky train.
I love it, man. Hey, we'll move on to the next track, Let It Take You by LA hip hop legend Micah 9
Yeah.
of the Freestyle Fellowship crew, also a co founder of the amazing hip hop group. But man, the hook was awesome on there. And man, you got to tell me the story behind this, man. This is wild. 2 years in the making, and you got a legend like Micah 9 on the album.
Yeah, that was a special one. Luckily enough, a lot of the people on the album I've met and hung out with before, Mike and
Yep.
I being one of them. And,
Nice.
he, like, comes back to Factor 2 Factor, and Mike and Nine have a few albums together. They're really good friends. Mike and Nine's been out to Saskatoon. We've been out to, there was a graffiti rap event out in London, Ontario. Mike and Nine and Factor were brought out. I was brought out.
Nice.
We kicked it there. Hung out with them, seen them, at shows in LA. So we were familiar with each other, but of course he didn't know me as a producer. He just knew me as a graffiti artist. And
That's right.
that beat, the flutes, I sent it over to him. I didn't know what he was
Yeah,
going to do with it. He comes back
that's it.
whistling on it, doing a hand whistle. Oh my god, just blew me away.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very cool track, man. I enjoyed that too as well, and that one was a standout track. The next track on the album was with a dude that I'm a big fan of too as well. So Noah 23,
Yeah.
definitely Canadian guy. I think he's from the East Coast though, right?
Yeah, he's from Guelph, Ontario, just outside of Toronto.
Yeah, awesome,
Yeah,
man. He did Lucid Dream, and he's got this song called Stevie Nicks that I used to listen to back in the day. And
yeah.
that dude's got albums for albums, man, just stacking.
Yeah,
So the
he's
dude,
releasing like an album every month this year too. It's crazy. It's wild. But yeah, Noah 23, uh, he was a guy that um, I always knew about. But
okay,
what happened was I had, years ago I had picked an album. Probably wasn't the right album for me to pick. So I was like, okay, Noah 23, you know, he's dope. Maybe not my thing. And then a
yep,
few years later, I heard another album and I was like, wait a minute, this is like my new favorite album. Like
nice.
I couldn't believe it, and so then I started. Yeah, he's got an insane catalog. So
Yeah,
I was finding album after album after album that was just so dope, and he seemed to be having like a resurgence in the last
yep.
few years, cranking stuff out, top of his game, just amazing. So he had. I saw him do a post on Instagram, and he was just like asking for a beat or two from anybody. He was putting an album together. I
Okay,
sent him a beat out of the blue, and he did it. It ended up on his album. So then I hit
nice.
him up to be on this album, and it worked really well.
Oh, that's super dope. And I remember too, like, yeah. So it looks like you got quite a collection behind you too.
Yeah,
And so when I really get into an MC and I try to find their back catalog, I'm always trying to purchase like all the albums, that I really dig. And so he was hard to keep up with because he just had so many albums
yeah.
that I was like, oh man, I'm probably missing, whatever. If I bought 10 albums, he's probably got 10 more that I couldn't get my hands on.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So that was super dope. So I really enjoyed that track too as well. His flows were banging, and then I like that like you mentioned, the album starts to build up, and that was definitely upbeat track, and so I could see the build up happening, and then you jump into the track by AJ Suede, the Anytime song. And so
Yeah.
did you do the scratches on that song too?
Yeah. Yeah. I think I did. I think I did all the cuts on the album except for the Jihad track. The cuts on
Okay.
that.
So
Yeah.
are you a DJ too, or you just mess with scratching?
Yeah. No, I've been DJing uh since about 97. Me and
Dude,
a couple friends kind of pooled our money and got some real shitty turntables and a real shitty mixer.
not an
And
MPC type,
yeah,
huh?
it was brutal. But then we kind of, and that stuff's expensive. So I think the first job I ever got out of high school, I had bought a Vestax '06 Pro mixer and a Technics 1200. I think I was paying 333 a month for 6 months. So it cost me about 2 grand
Oh
for
wow.
the mixer and the turntable, and there were so many times I wanted to pull out and not make the payments or to get rid of it, because I was young and I had no money.
Yeah, sure.
But I'm glad I stuck it out, and I still have the same equipment sitting right here beside me. And turntablism was always very important to me
Yeah.
and a lot of my friends. It was crazy in Saskatchewan, in the late 90s. Most of the house parties we were going to, there would be DJs there with turntables.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, and in the prairies, you go out to, some kids' acreage, there'd be 4 turntables set up and
That's
like
wild.
walking out. And so it was really big with my group of friends and just kind of in the scene
Yeah.
in general. So yeah, I've always kind of been a bedroom DJ though. I've never, battled or trying to do anything with it. Just, it's kind of like meditation for me, just scratch
Yeah.
away. And so I've gotten decent. I couldn't do a whole set and keep people's attention or anything like that. But as far as album cuts and stuff go, I enjoy doing that. But at the same time, um, I know as a DJ performing songs, I always get annoyed when there's songs I really like and I want to DJ live and they got cuts all over them.
Yeah. Okay.
Sitting up there just not doing anything while there's cuts going on the song. It's not generally the best look. So I try to keep them to a minimal and kind of only when necessary on tracks. And I think some tracks it fits, other tracks it doesn't. So I don't go overboard with that.
Okay.
At some point I'll probably just drop more of a turntablism type project with drumming and cuts and stuff like that on it, but keep it separate and apart from rapping.
That's wild, man. Before I move on to my next point, so you rap,
I
you
don't rap.
DJ.
I
Oh,
don't
I'm
rap.
sorry. Okay, that's it. That's it. I'm
Yeah,
sorry. I'm sorry. You produce.
yeah.
You you make beats. You do graph and you DJ, man. And so that I was gonna say, hey, I'd be surprised if you didn't rap or break dance, man. It
Right.
seems like you cover the whole spectrum, man.
Yeah, my wrist won't allow me to break dance. I tried that in high school. I got bad bones.
Okay. Well, what about rapping? Did you ever give rapping a shot at all?
There was like a month or two back in high school where I think I dropped a couple verses that, yeah, I probably shouldn't have.
Not even, man. Oh, I'm sure it's
Yeah,
dope, man.
yeah. So no, yeah, no rapping, no rapping for me.
Well, hey, man, you're phenomenal and everything else, man. So yeah, and I guess just last point on the track with AJ Suede. I think I caught that he was from Seattle, Washington. Is that correct? West Coast MC.
Yeah, my understanding. I know he's got some roots in New York, but I think kind of came up in Seattle, and he's one of those guys that in the last few years, I think his first album that I heard he put out on Fake Four. I
Okay.
grab everything that Fake Four puts out, and it just blew me away. And then all of a sudden, I was
Dope.
like, I got to hear everything this guy's put out, and he just, he can't miss as far as I'm concerned. And so when I reached out to him, obviously, he had no idea who I was, but he recognized me as kind of a supporter of his music,
Yep.
which was
Dope.
which was awesome. And so he's like, yeah, of course, yeah. And so we got that track done.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. You got that dope hook, that anytime, plenty
Yeah.
time. Woo!
And
I
so
love
what
that hook.
happened with that?
Uh huh.
This is a cool story about that. Is so he had just sent me straight 32 bars. So there was no
Nice.
there was no hook. And so what I did, and if you listen, is at the start of the song, I just took the first words that he says from the first few lines, and then I created the chorus from that.
What? Oh, dude,
Yeah,
that's
so
crazy.
anytime, and then I repeated it. Anytime, plenty time, plenty time. So I,
Dude,
I created that
oh,
just,
I got to go back and listen to it,
yeah,
knowing
to
that
make it a
story
more
now. That's
complete
crazy.
song because there was no hook. It was just 32 straight bars. And so I chopped it and then created that.
That is crazy. Well,
Yeah,
that's pretty dope.
yeah. And so when I
Well,
sent that to him, he was like, "Oh shit, you made a song." And yeah, yeah,
yeah. Oh man, you got the post production skills too. So yeah, I will listen to it now a little later on today, knowing that's pretty amazing.
yeah.
Hey, the next track was Inside, right, featuring Two Mex, which I see the reflection in your glass. I can see a Shapeshifters logo on there somewhere, man. But yeah, hey, that, again, another banging track, and all these tracks are banging, but really awesome, man. Do you have any background with Tumex, and how did that track come about? That was another one that I thought the beat was super hard.
Yeah, Inside Baseball, Tumex. So Tumex is, been a big fan as long as I can remember.
Yeah,
Met Tumex a few times. He came up here way kind of back in the day.
nice.
We've always kind of just kept in touch loosely. Like I wouldn't know if he would have known me to pick me out of a crowd or anything, but we've I've supported his music. Um, he was really good to get down on the first album. So with this track, and this is so bizarre, is I know the Shapeshifters in the last couple years have kind of been hanging out a little more, trying to finish up tracks. I know there's talks of an album and things like that, and Tumex has been hanging out with them. And when I
Dope.
sent him this beat, it just happened to be a time where he was hanging out with them, a few days prior. And I even had this thought in my head, like, man, I should, I never give direction with the songs. It's just, whatever you feel kind of thing. And in
Right.
my head, I was like, I should ask him to rap about the Shapeshifters. I didn't say that to him.
Uh-huh.
That's exactly what happened though. He was hanging out
Oh,
with them the day before. He drops his verse, he sends it back, and the whole song is just ribbing on the Shapeshifters.
oh
You
shoot.
know, die young, still alive, and old as hell. You know, that's hilarious.
Yo, that's
Like it's a great track. Inside Baseball, it's all inside jokes about the Shapeshifters. So that song is for the Shapeshifter fans. If you don't know who the Shapeshifters are, you don't know who any of those guys are, the song just doesn't hit the same way. But if you know who those guys are,
all plenty.
hopefully you find a lot of humor in that song and really enjoy it.
Yeah, that was great, man. And I really really enjoyed the beat on that one too. So that's
Yeah,
really
thank
dope.
you.
Yeah, the next track you did with Canadian legend Mocha Only,
Yeah,
right? Freak the Form, another dope track. And so I love the harmonies and I think it was humming right on the track
yeah,
that
yeah.
he was doing. Was that him or did you add that?
Both. So there, in the beat I sent over, there's kind of like a do, and then Mocha harmonized with that,
Oh, okay.
which was unbelievable.
Uh-huh.
And he's one of those guys that, he kind of really came into that when he was kind of rocking with Swollen Members. He was kind of their like harmony guy,
Yep.
and for him to do that on that track and to have it match so well wasn't something I could have even imagined was going to happen.
Oh,
And
came
it
together
seems
well.
like everybody just put 110% into the verses. So, and Mocha, I first met him I think in 97 or 98.
Okay.
He had hopped a train to Saskatoon to hang out with his friends from here, these dudes isosceles, which was
Oh,
shrimp.
right. Oh,
Yeah,
yep.
yeah,
Heck yeah.
they were kind of legendary from back in the day,
That's right.
Shrimpy,
Yeah.
Sassafras, and Boyardee. And so they were in a crew, Conscious Pilots. So Mocha came out and was skateboarding out in front of my high school, waiting for one of them to get out of class. And so
Oh, wow.
he's always kind of been a staple, in the Saskatoon scene, coming and performing first by
Yeah.
himself and then with Swollen Members. And I never really knew him that well. I think we kind of knew of each other, kind of
Yep.
thing. Like, obviously, I knew of his music and stuff. He may have known my graffiti, but certainly not as a producer. But he was really great to work with. Came back with that track really quick and super happy with it.
Yeah. Swollen Members is a staple underground hip hop group, right? And
Yeah,
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 man, if you haven't heard of the Swollen Members, you better go back and listen to their catalog.
yeah,
Those guys are
absolutely.
amazing.
Yeah,
Well, dope, man. The next track, Hold Fire with the homie Mestizo, a good buddy of mine out of Florida, man. And that guy is still getting better every day, man. Just the
I,
dude
I
continues to
agree.
age like fine wine. He's amazing.
Absolutely, I agree, man. Like anything Mestizo's putting out, I want to hear. Uh,
Fire.
the stuff he's doing with Dose One with their group Alpha,
Oh man.
I never would have put those two together in
That's
my
right.
head
That's
before
right.
that, and it couldn't be more perfect. Like the first two Alpha albums are at the top of list for like my favorite albums. Like
Yo.
they're just, I think the last Alpha two. I was listening to that for the first time late at night, just with the earbuds in, and by the time that album was done, I think I had tears rolling down my face. Like
Dude, so good. Yeah, and
something
the guy
special.
on your track too, he's flipping back between two different styles, right? And so
Absolutely.
I was just like, oh man. So
Yeah,
it's almost
yeah.
like I can't get through these songs because he's so good, man.
Yeah, and people are like, "Oh, who's this guy?" I'm like, "Well, that's Mestizo." Well, who's the other guy? Well,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
Mestizo. You know, and I had the pleasure of meeting him in must have been around 2005. Me and the homie Chaps and my buddy Theory, who I
Yeah.
ate with, we drove to Durango, Colorado for a shapeshifter show from here. I think it took us 23 hours straight.
Oh
And
man.
so we went
I
to the
love it.
shapeshifter show. Then the next day there was a shapeshifter show in Denver. So we drove to Denver,
Yep.
and there was a Galapagos 4 show
Yep.
going on, and I
That's the
think
crew
there
right
was
there.
Grouch was performing. And anyway, Mestizo was hanging out outside the shapeshifter show,
Uh-huh.
and I was there with Chaps. Chaps had his Mini Cooper at the time. Mestizo wanted to drive it, so they were ripping around downtown Denver, and it was almost crashed the car. But I met Mestizo, and he probably doesn't remember. I barely remember, but big fan of his music. Just, I
Yeah.
yeah, to have
That was
him
great.
do what he did on that track, I
Yeah,
can't.
that was another song. That was probably one of my favorite songs too, as well. And just again, he blew my mind, just going back and forth. And I had to go back a couple times, like a few months ago when it came out, and I was like, that is him?
Yeah,
So yeah, that was great, man. What a unique guy too. And then the dude knows how to sing too. He's super good at that, so he can do it all. He's amazing.
yeah,
Cool,
yeah,
man.
absolutely. And he's one of those guys that when the vocals come back, there's not much you have to do to it. He knows how his vocals should
Yeah,
sound on that track, and
that's
he
right.
sends them back. Not much needs to be done. You know.
Yeah, yeah, he's very particular, and I
Yeah,
love that. And I actually got him. We did a track for an album I got coming out in probably a month or so. But yeah, he killed it too. So awesome, man. I love that song.
yeah. Thank you.
Hey, and then the next song was another guy I wasn't too familiar with, but Rifleman. Yep. So you did the rifle gun, or I'm sorry, my rifle, my gun track, and where's Rifleman from?
Rifles from South Central LA. He
Okay.
Hip Hop Clan is his crew that he came up with, but I knew him through like CVE, Chillin' Villain Empire. He
Oh,
was
that's
down
right.
with those guys rapping on a lot of their stuff too. When I was younger, I thought he was in CVE, but as I got older, I realized he was just affiliated Hip Hop Clan. So he came up in like Good Life, Project Blowed,
Okay.
and Rifleman. I mean, he's one of my favorite rappers. He can
Nice.
chop like nobody. Um, it's effortless for him, and I think my homie Chap said it best: is in Rifleman's mind, he is the best, and that's how he approaches every song.
I love it.
So when you give him something, he comes at it with heat and confidence like nobody else. The turnaround time is unmatched. Yeah, I can't say enough about that guy's rapping, man. He's just one of my favorites for sure.
Yeah, it came together, and I think the hook that you sampled on there was really good too, meshed well.
Yeah,
But
there's
yeah, again,
nobody else that could rap on that beat. That's a Rifleman beat right there.
that's it, man.
Yeah,
That's it.
for sure.
Yeah, so that was a great track, man.
Thank you.
And then you jumped into Vinny Barbarino, which was done by another staple in underground hip hop, Jihad the Roughneck, been around for a long time too as well, and I love his unique flow and sound,
Yep.
and yeah, staple in the game. That was great, man. Do you know him personally? How did that track work out,
I
man? I love.
don't know him personally, and honestly, I only started listening to him, you know, really listening to him probably 4 or 5 years ago. My buddy Chaps put me onto him. He was like, "Man,
Uh-huh.
you gotta check this guy out," and he would play him on the radio station all the time, and I was like, "Oh my god,"
Yeah.
And then so I did a deep dive on Jihad and like just love his stuff, love his voice, love his delivery. It's very I don't know, he kind of has this like this kind of subdued way of rapping where it commands you to listen to
Yep.
like every word that he's saying. And he doesn't have to try to make you do that. It's effortless for him to say, you're going to listen to me, and the way he approaches those tracks. I love the fact that he works with a lot of DJs.
Okay.
And so the production that he usually works over, for me, it's like a very like a turntablist influence in that. He's been cranking albums out left and right.
Yeah, he sure has been.
Which is awesome. And I mean, my limited experience dealing with him is he's just super nice. He's just a really great person. And, the older you get, the more value you place in that, because
Yeah,
those are the people you want to support. Those are the people you want to associate with.
Yeah.
So it's awesome.
Yeah, that's the best part too, man. Because they have that saying where you never want to meet your heroes in person,
Right.
right? So and then sometimes you tend to get disappointed. But yeah, I always love it when an MC that I hold very high,
Yeah.
high, and I meet them and they turn out to be a great person. That's always a great surprise,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
double the effort that you want to support them. And
For sure.
well, good, man. Hey, so appropriately, we have Halloween coming up at the end of the month, and so hey, man, I thought this was also one of my favorite tracks. Was the Monster song by Paleface, and
Yeah.
man, I don't butcher Terry Mentier's name, but man, the Sinister Keys were wicked. Whew, just I thought the beat went well with just the Halloween theme, but I was like, man, this track is fire.
Yeah. Yeah, Paleface is somebody I came to know through a good friend, Matre. Matre was in the English League, then the league with Doc Lude, Life Rexall, producer Jericho J, Shapeshifter affiliates.
Okay.
And so Paleface is from Finland. Matre had met him and they did an album together. Paleface had flown out to Los Angeles for a CD release party for Matre. And so I had went down for that and met Paleface. Um, and we just hit it off. I know Paleface loves West Coast underground rap, grew up on that stuff. Mike and I was performing at the show. Rifleman was at the show. D-Ski was at the show. So, experiencing that, a lot of those guys I was meeting for the first time, and Paleface was there meeting them for the first time. So it was nice to share that experience. I got awesome footage of Paleface, Matre, and Mike and Nine just kind of chopping it up after the
Oh
show.
man, sick.
They've got a song together that's on their project. And so Paleface has just been somebody that, I've connected with just through underground rap, and the fact that he seems to be just a super awesome person. My understanding is that in Finland, like he's pretty big, he's pretty well known out there.
Okay.
He tours with symphonies out there. He's got a lot of projects on the go.
Jeez.
And he was very excited to get on this project for the simple fact that, his name is sandwiched in between a lot of his heroes as well.
Yeah.
And he's one of those guys that he's very meticulous in what he does. So I mentioned before that he had an idea of how that song needed to be arranged so that he could approach it in the way that he wanted to. And so I was super happy to work with him on that. His friend, he goes, I got this guy, Terry, who sings, who would sound great on this track. And I said, yeah, absolutely. And so Terry jumped on the track, and yeah, I couldn't be happier. It's got Paleface is very political, so there's that in that song. It talks
flavor,
about those those online idiot warrior right wing nut jobs that when they were kids it might have been the monster under their bed. Now they've replaced that with immigrants and terrorists, and so it's got a good deep underlining meaning to that song as well.
Oh, that's wild, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely an awesome track, and the beat itself, like I mentioned, dude, just the keys were awesome and very wicked. Well, hey, man, we're gonna jump into "Daylight Illusions" by Staple Mouth, one of your label
Yeah.
mates. The brother is amazing. I think he's based out of Colorado now, but
Yep.
man, just the track was an ill concept, man, and that one too, I really enjoyed, man. You got a story behind how you guys put that track together?
Well, Staple Mouth. I listened to him way back. He was on
That's right.
a Plague Language compilation with Noah 23 and those guys, and so I was a little bit familiar with him, but I hadn't really heard much from him in a long time. And
Yeah,
then,
I think he took a break, right?
yeah, and then he put that album out with the Mole. I think that was only like 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And when I heard that, I was like, oh my God, oh my God.
His double time flow
Yeah,
is
and the whole
ridiculous.
feeling of that album was kind of a little dark and a little sinister and very, it was grimy. And I really like grimy, dirty underground rap like that. And
Yeah.
so um yeah, I was like, I would love to work with this guy. Hit him up. Super
Yep.
nice guy.
Oh, he's super nice.
Yeah, he
Super
was.
nice dude.
So I made a new friend by approaching him and getting him down on the album. He was. It's funny too because on that track he's like, damn homie, we should have done this a long time ago. And then I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
except for I didn't. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? I was like, yeah, except for I didn't know you and I didn't produce. But other than that, we should have done this a long time ago. Yeah, you're right. Absolutely.
And I
Yeah.
think he just joined the Audio Recon family, right? I think I saw like an announcement maybe within the last few months
Yeah.
that yeah, does
Yeah.
Audio Recon work as a record label, or is it just more distribution of music and just a family of artists that put stuff out?
So yeah, Audio Recon is run by Id Oblis,
Yep,
and it's a record label, and that's he gets behind projects
yep. There's a
that
lot
he
of dope
believes
stuff
in.
on there.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Lots.
before I knew him, well, I just knew him because I was ordering stuff from him all the time. All
Yeah.
the Serengeti special like lathe cuts and stuff that he was putting out. So yeah, and then so Id Oblis is somebody that I've come to know through
Yeah.
that. But then we started working together. He came out to Saskatoon this summer as well. I met him. I went out for um, some shows out in LA in April,
Yep.
and he was out there as well. So we hung out and kicked it. But yeah, Audio Recon's a great label.
Yeah. He's not. Is he from the United States? I
Yeah,
always forget where he's from.
yeah,
Okay.
he's from Indiana.
Okay. Yeah, he's another dope cat, man. And I actually just start listening to his Fresh Air EP, which I really like. And I've talked to him like on and off over the years. It's been a while, but yeah, he's another cat I'd be interested in working with. Such a dope guy. Seems
Yeah,
really
yeah,
friendly.
absolutely.
Well, good. And so that was it's funny is that the next track we were going to talk about was the one that he did with Oblio, Falling Down.
Right.
And so this one another one was a dope track that I really appreciated. Flows were ridiculous, and I keep saying that this is a dope track as we go by song, but I mean just the entire album was great, man. And
Thank you.
so yeah, I really enjoyed Doblis's song too as well, and Oblio I wasn't familiar with. Is he on the label too, or
He's from the Dreadnoughts, so
okay,
he's been rapping for a long time. Another guy, I wasn't too familiar with him at all, but Id Oblis was like, I want to get Oblio on this track, and I was like,
sick.
he's like, I said I kind of got this thing where I only produce for people who I've digested their full body of work kind of thing, and
Yep.
he was basically like, trust me on this, make an exception, or he gave me a bunch of links, and I spent a few days listening to Oblio tracks, and I was like, okay, hell yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm
And
in.
then obviously what Oblio did on that was amazing. It
Yeah.
Obelisk came through, and that beat was a beat that I had made where I kind of went through a phase where I was making beats that had a lot of change ups
Okay.
and even change up in the tempo, which is annoying as hell. I've come to realize when it comes to mixing, it's horrible. And so but there's a change up in that song between their verses and stuff, and I like the way that they handled that, and yeah, I love that track.
Awesome, man. Yeah, very, very cool track from your label mates and much appreciated. And then we'll go into Caveman Draw by Thesis Sahib, another guy I wasn't too familiar with. But yep, hey, what about the making of that track, man? How'd that work out?
So Thesis is a guy I've been friends with for a long time, and we first became friends through graffiti, through
Nice.
Freight Train Graffiti, because I would see his pieces roll through all the time. He was known for doing a lot of characters on the freights, and we would
Sick.
catch him all the time. He would catch our stuff, and then eventually he had come out for Summer Fling Graffiti Festival, one of the first ones we had thrown, he just came out to paint and hang out. And eventually, I don't know how it happened, but somebody had put me onto the fact that he rapped. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay, whatever, didn't expect much. Then when I
Right.
heard his raps, I was like, oh, yo, oh my God. Like, yeah, Thesis can rap. And
Done
so
deal.
I became a bigger fan of him for his music.
Okay.
And we've got to hang out quite a few times over the years, and we've become pretty close. And so it only kind of made sense
To get him on. Yeah.
to work together. And he's another guy he makes beats and stuff, and he raps. He knows what's up. So he's very meticulous. So we had a lot of back and forth on this track to make it as good as possible.
Yo, I love it, man. And so the next track, Curse Words by Cursive Dialect, beat was extra nasty, and I always have a hard time picking accents out. Is he from Ireland? Where's he from?
So they're from Australia. It's a group.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah,
totally did.
they're
I totally
Australian,
flopped that
and
one.
I don't know how I missed the boat on Cursive Dialect years ago. They
Uh-huh.
weren't not on my radar, and
Okay.
my homie Chaps was playing them on the radio, and
Uh-huh.
everything I started hearing from them,
Yeah.
I was like, who are these guys? Like, who are these guys? And so, of course, went out and bought every record they put out,
Yeah.
realized that they had put out an album or two on Mush. And so, back in the day, I was picking everything up, I thought, on Mush, but I must have missed them. But, they've got Radio Inactive on one of their albums. They've got Hemlock Ernst. Like, they're in the know. Like, for me, they were like the Australian Shapeshifters, kind of. They had
Oh, okay.
kind of a bigger crew. They got a dope DJ, Peso Bionic. He's the one that does the cuts on that track,
Oh, I
actually.
like that name.
Yeah, Peso Bionic. And there's um, Volk Makedonsky, and I'm drawing a blank on the other one. I think I got it here. Just give me a second
Yeah, no
to
worries.
get his name. Oh yeah, there's Volk Makedonsky and the Maltese Well Monster and Peso Bionic on that track. And
Sick.
yeah, those guys, I've been listening to them so much over the years, and I
Yeah,
had just reached out to them. That beat, I was like, the beat is wild, like it's crazy.
it
Like
sure was, man.
samples I found for that were just bizarre, and I was like, this is either a Cursed Dialect track or a Radio Inactive track. There was like those are the kind of my two options, and so I hit these guys up. One of the guys couldn't get down on the track just because of what was going on with him at the time, but
Okay.
the other two, the DJ got on it. I love the track so much. So thankful to be able to work with those guys.
Fantastic, man. Really dope track. And then followed that song is then followed by Postcards by Mickey Avalon,
Yeah,
which that one too I really like the hook. Right, my mama sent postcards from hell and
yeah,
tell my friends I wish them well. Oh man, holy cow!
yeah.
I thought that was a lyrically dope track, man.
Well, and that's the thing with, like, I know I get a response from a lot of people, with Mickey Avalon, oh, yeah, that track, My Dick, or the Jane Fonda track. A lot of people, they
Oh,
knew him from one or two songs, and then they kind of just dismissed him as kind of like a novelty actor, a joke rapper kind of thing.
uh-huh.
And, you know, he can rap. He can rap. He's got stage presence. He's got this sleazy swagger about him. Um, and to top it off, he's an awesome, awesome, very nice person.
Oh man, that's
He's
great
one of
to hear.
those people that before I met him and got to know him, just if you were to judge him off his music and what he raps about, I'm a streetwalker selling cock for rock, like stuff like that. It's like he seems like the person you might not want to get to know, but I talk to him often. He's so nice. His partner, Minnie Avalon, she is the salt of the earth. She's a wonderful person. They're
Oh,
so
that's
they're so good together.
uh-huh.
Uh, so to be able to work with him, has been a real treat, a real pleasure. He came out to Saskatoon one year for the summer fling. I DJ'd for him here. I DJ'd for him out on the West Coast on a couple tour dates. Like, just been a real treat working with him. And I think it's brought a lot of people around that might have dismissed him too. They're just like, oh shit, like, yeah, this is dope. Like Mickey
Yeah,
Avalon.
just
Oh, I'm like,
listen to the
yeah,
track.
he's dope. Of course, yeah, he's dope. Yeah,
Yeah, that was a banging track, man.
yeah.
Well, good, man. And then with the final two tracks, we got number 17, Universal Elastic by Giovanni Marks, and another dope MC that I wasn't familiar with. Where's he from?
Yeah, so he used to go by Subtitle. So
Oh,
yeah, so
okay.
Subtitle. He's been down with the Shapeshifters and all those guys
Oh,
since.
that same. Oh man.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
so he
Subtitle.
changed his name. All
Yeah,
right.
so his real name is Giovanni Marks.
Oh, got it. Okay. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Oh,
and
okay.
so he's one of those guys that since I first heard him doing stuff with the Shapeshifters, and like D-Ski produced for him a lot back in the day. He's one of those guys that I've kind of tried to stay up on everything that he's put out.
Yeah.
He's come up here for shows. Funny enough, he was actually at my wedding because he happened to be in town. He was staying with Chaps, and everyone was at the wedding, so he rolled over to the wedding. So we kicked it there. I've just kind of stayed in touch with him, just mostly by supporting his music over the years, and he's one of my favorite rappers.
Yeah.
So
Did he take a break, or was he consistently still making music? Man, I haven't heard that name in a while. He's amazing
he's
though.
put out a lot of music under Giovanni Marks.
That's where I probably lost
Right.
the
Yeah, and
pulse,
that's
man.
always the risk, when people change names and stuff like that is, and
Yeah,
they don't have a heavy social media presence. It's hard to keep up, but
I have to go back.
well, yeah, go back and check his
Yeah,
stuff out. Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's great.
very dope, man. And then we get to the closer of the album, "Reckless" by another LA legend, AWOL One and MC Homeless. I performed with Homeless like probably 10 years ago in
Oh
LA,
yeah, yeah.
but he's super dope, man. But yep, hey man, I thought that was a great way to close the album. I love how they sound together
Oh
on the
yeah, for
track.
sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah, and Gel Rock's on that track too. So AWOL and Gel, the Cloaks.
the Cloaks, yep.
Yeah, absolutely. And AWOL's, uh, I've been a fan of his as long as I can remember. Before I even knew about the Shapeshifters, I ended up with
Yeah.
a tape, back in the day, late '90s. I think it was had some tracks from Three Eyed Cows or something like that on it. So a bunch of AWOL verses and tracks on it. And in my head, I was like, man, this guy's voice, like. In my head, I had pictured him looking like Wesley Willis, just kind of, you know, the way he sounded to me had
Right,
always
right.
intrigued me. Yeah, and so he's one of my favorite MCs. He's become a pretty good friend over the years,
Nice.
and so to get him on a track was awesome. MC Homeless, uh, I've come to know him through the rap crew that I'm involved in. Producers and crew, whatever. Our crew, I've come to know Homeless through that. We've worked together on a few projects. I've produced two 12 inches for him and Cool Keith, and we've got a third one coming out next year.
Monsters. Yep. Well.
Yeah, we got Aliens, Monsters, and then the next one is Mushrooms and Acid.
Oh, I got to listen to Aliens, man. I don't think I've
Yeah,
heard that.
yeah, that was the
Hey,
first one we put out, and then Homeless, myself, and Mickey Avalon, we've got a 12-inch single dropping next year as well. That's done,
wow, man.
and then AWOL's going to be on the remix of that track.
So, hey, so Monsters, real quick, I want to bring it up. Was another point I had jotted down. It sounds like we grew up the same time period, and I heard the Monster Squad sample on there.
Yeah,
Wolfman got
yeah, for
Nars.
sure.
I
Yeah,
was
yeah. That
excited
that's one
up
of those
to the
movies from my
berry.
childhood that I would probably watch every single year around Halloween
All
time. It
day,
was always
bro.
on TV, and it always stuck with me.
Wolfman has Nars. I was
Yeah,
dying
for
when I heard
sure. Yeah, definitely. I'm glad you caught that for sure. Because
that.
people in our age range will definitely identify with that for sure.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
that alone. I mean, the track was banging already, but that's still the deal for me, man.
right on. That's great. And working with Cool Keith is just I mean,
Oh, dude.
I'm a huge Cool Keith fan. Like this whole section right here, that's Cool Keith right there.
Oh man.
Like that's all Cool Keith.
Yeah, legendary, man.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah, I was definitely gonna bring that up in our conversation. Well, hey man, I wanted to ask you too about the cover art for Poke the Bear. You know,
Yeah.
I love the hand shadows, and then the E comes out looking like the bear. Who came up with that concept? Who did the art? Was that you?
So that was my buddy Noise 319.
Okay.
Um,
Oh yeah,
yeah, he does a lot of uh,
I'm
you know,
familiar.
layouts and cover art for a lot of dope underground rappers. So it was kind of a no-brainer. He's originally from Canada, lives in Texas, you know, for the last, I don't know, 15 years or so.
Yeah.
But he did, if not now, the art for that album, my first album. And I, you know, being an artist myself, I'm very hands-on. I'm very picky, very meticulous. So he's probably the only person I could have trusted to do that, and I
Okay.
just gave full control over to him. I gave him no
I
direction
love
on
it.
Poke the Bear, and what he came back with, I was like, it was memorable, you know. And
Catchy.
for me, yeah, that's important that it's memorable, you know.
Yeah.
The E with the hand with the bear, like
Yeah. Oh, that's
get
dope.
out of here. So very happy with what he did.
Very cool, man. Well, shout out to your boy Noise, man. I've heard the name throughout the community. So awesome, man. I love
Yeah,
it.
he runs Uggs Mag too.
That's right. Okay. I was like,
Right.
man, how do I know the name? Okay.
Yeah,
That's it, man.
absolutely. Yeah.
Well, cool, man. And so with that too, man, I wanted to shout out some friends that you did a track with, right? Perfect color combination. I
Yep.
love the Prairie Pressure track that you did with them,
Oh,
and
thank you.
I'm super excited to be jumping on one of your beats too, man. I was an instant fan, when I heard a bunch of your stuff, and so really cool, man. I'm
Yeah, I'm
excited.
looking forward to hearing what you guys do. Definitely.
Very cool, man. Well, with that, man, hey, we talked about rap, and so as far as music, like, what are you digging into, man? Are you happy with the stuff that's coming out these days? Is there
Oh,
any
yeah.
particular? There's probably so many, but any standouts in terms of what you like to listen to?
So as right now, I don't think there's ever been a time when there's been so much dope underground dropping. Like I talk to with chaps about this all the time. It seems like there's a huge resurgence. There was a big lull, you know, in the like, you know, like 2010 to I don't know what, like 2017. It just seemed like there was not much happening, but you know, in the last few years, it's hard to keep up with. And
Yeah, true
you
that.
know, and my favorites right now are people that were putting out music 20 years ago. You know, I'm checking everything that's coming from Jihad, um, Homeboy Sandman, any
Oh,
project that guy's dropping, I'm checking out. AJ Suede, Mestizo, Dose One, Serengeti, you know, Buck 65,
oh man.
you know, anything from like Han Solo record label, Full Plate, Fake Four, you know, those are the things that I'm checking out constantly. I mean, it's like a full-time job trying to keep up these days, you know,
You are
with
absolutely
underground
right,
rap, let
man.
alone mainstream stuff. I feel I can't do it.
Yeah, man, and you bring up a good point too, man. There's a lot of guys who were rapping in the early '90s who just for some reason, man, they just blasting off and starting to put out more stuff, man. So it's good to hear a lot of folks from my younger days, and then they're still doing stuff. I
Yeah,
love it.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you know, AWOL and Gal, the new Cloaks album is dropping soon. I couldn't be more excited for that. You know,
Those
like
guys are
just
on fire, man.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah,
I get excited. I get excited. I get
yeah, and
so excited.
AWOL One has a lot of dope merch too. I'm buying a lot of the shirts that he puts
Yeah,
out. And then a lot of the products that Gail's putting out in terms of CDs, they just got it down. Merch is great, music is great,
yeah,
and I'm a big supporter of those guys too.
yeah. Me too. Absolutely.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, real quick, as we come close to the end, man, I wanted to just talk about what you're more famous for, right? So let's get into your involvement in the graffiti scene.
Right.
Right. So, hey, is there anything that you want to share about it? And so I know you got some background. You're part of the Can't Be Stopped graffiti crew, which got its start in LA, right, in the
Right.
80s.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so,
yeah. 84.
yep,
And you
that's
know,
right.
growing up in the graffiti scene, it was impossible to not know about CBS.
That's right, man.
Even paint and freights, which was the focus, they had their freight painters. And so when I got into listening to underground rap and became kind of like a super fan of the Shapeshifters, I would hear CBS crew being shouted out, being mentioned, DJ Rob
Yep.
One, Bleak, Perk, Mech, Exist, Circus, so that road trip we took in the mid 2000s down to Durango, that's when I met up with, Existerio and LAJ and Circus. And so
Oh man.
we met them in Durango. We met them at their hotel the next day, and then kind of drove up to Denver with them, and we stayed at their homie's house, and just that's kind of where that jumped off, and we kind of kept in touch. And then in 2014, CBS Crew was looking to expand into
Okay.
Canada,
That's
and
right.
so Exist had mentioned me to the guys in the crew and said, maybe we should consider putting this guy down. There was,
Yep.
kind of a vetting period, meetings, things like that. And so 2014 is when I joined CBS, and repping CBS. It's amazing.
Yeah, you answered my next question. And so was it, did they have you do a couple pieces and then you had to send it to them, or was it just purely just social interaction that kind of determined your entry into the CBS?
Yeah, I think it was more like, look, like we're expanding into Canada.
Okay.
They're not near where we are, so I think they wanted to make sure that whoever they were putting down in the crew were solid. You know,
Yep.
the fact that I had this background with LAJ and Existerio and they could
Yep.
vouch for me, I didn't have to go out and do anything
Okay.
to prove, that I should be down with the crew. I think I had a body of work at that point,
Yeah.
spanning, 16, 17 years at that point, where they could
Yeah.
say, look at what he's done, and for me, it was primarily freights. And the nice thing about freights is they roll all over Canada, US, Mexico. So I wasn't just kind of, I just didn't have a foothold up here. I kind of had a foothold on the rails traveling throughout the States as well. And
Yeah. So
I think,
dope, man.
people that were paying attention to the rails, hopefully, kind of would see me up and stuff like that. Because, we came out the gate hitting really hard on the freights, and we haven't really let up.
Yeah, I've seen like a lot of the stuff that you've done on the Instagram page, and it's wow, it's amazing, man. I just
Thank
love your
you.
style, and I've always tried to like grab, like graph on paper when I was a kid, but it's just terrible. I just got horrible handwriting in
Right,
general,
right,
so I admire folks who can tag it up nicely. And
for
so,
sure.
yeah, that's really cool, man. And so, when did you start? Was it like in the late '90s when you actually started spraying and bombing, or?
Yeah, I started like tagging and bombing in the mid 90s,
Okay,
probably 90, 96,
okay,
95, 96. And then 97 hit my first freight with Theory. And then, because we're from a kind of a rural area, there's not, once you bomb, you go out a few times, you've kind of reached your limit of places to hit out here, and it's
yeah.
kind of a dead end street, right? The same few people are going to see it, and what's that worth? Not much. And then once we started seeing the freights that were rolling through and recognizing, okay, this freight came from Vancouver, oh, this one came from Toronto,
Yeah,
oh shit,
yeah.
and then we're seeing
That's
these
it.
trains like the potash trains that were coming up back and forth from Florida. And we're
Mm,
like, whoa, why are we wasting our time tagging and bombing in the city when we could be hitting these freights? And you know who knows
yeah,
where we end up. So that was we recognized that early on, and that's kind of been my passion for sure is freights.
I love it. Spreads the word, man. Well, you got an amazing catalog of photos that I really enjoyed. So
Thank you.
that's super dope. Well, hey, with that, hey, what does Rove do for fun when you're not making music or you're spraying?
When I'm not, I like to spend as much time outside as possible. I
Okay.
love I love just going for walks. I love road trips. I've got a family. I spend every spare moment I can, when I'm not painting and making music,
Yeah,
spend every spare moment, with my kids and my wife. So
I love it.
that's it's a nice balance. I feel like I'm in a good place. I've got a good balance with everything that's going on. Um, I came to a realization, years ago, that I can paint forever if I do it right, in a way that it's not affecting other things in my life negatively. So
Sure.
I can go paint at night once the kids are in bed, and I can go out for a few hours and come home. I'm not going to go organize painting a wall every weekend, all weekend. That's family time. So I've come to a good balance. I don't need to go out and crush 300 freights in a year.
Yeah,
If I'm going to paint for the next 40 years, if I get a decent amount done, that's good. They're
that's
gonna
it.
ride, they're gonna roll. So I found a good balance. So my spare time is keeping busy with my family.
That's it, man. I love it. Yeah, that's the game these days, balance.
Absolutely.
And so you mentioned too, you got a couple things in the works. You got the next Cool Keith Dempsey Homeless Project coming up. Is there anything else that you wanted to highlight for the folks listening today? What to look out for?
Yeah. So that Cool Keith and MC Homeless 12-inch that we're dropping next year, called Mushrooms and Acid.
Yep.
It's featuring Gal Rock and Open Mike Eagle, which is
Oh
which
man.
is pretty dope. Yeah.
Yep.
So, homeless, Cool Keith, Open Mike Eagle, and Galrock on a track. To me, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Um, and I actually got an EP in the works with Mickey Avalon that I haven't really talked about yet. So
Oh wow.
we're getting that started. I got plans to put out another Fresh Air project with Idobulus and AWOL. So I haven't told
Sheesh.
AWOL about that, so that might be news to him. But I just started making the beats for
Dope.
that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start on another compilation, but I think I'm gonna kind of slow this one down. I put a lot of pressure on myself with the last few. I kind of get in these hyper modes where I just work, 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 and I'm just gonna try to slow it down and kind of slowly pick away at that one while I've got these other little things on the go as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, good. Man. Hey, with that, where can folks find your music? What's the best spot to go look if they want to check out some music by Rove?
My Bandcamp, uh, I think it's Rove187.bandcamp.
Okay.
Also, my label, Saskatoon Rap Music.
All
I got
right.
stuff there, and then a lot of the stuff I put out is also on Audio Recon in the U.S. and Pen Thief Records out of Europe.
Awesome, man. Yep. And I just started your 2022 album, the If Not Now. I started listening to it too as well, and so I'm excited to get a little more into it. But hey, man, thank you again. I appreciate your time. I'm looking forward to following your musical career and continue to follow your art too as well. Been a fan over the years. But yeah, I really appreciate you taking time to do this, man. Thank you so much. Any final closing words for the group?
No, I just want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to, talk about. I have a hard time talking about myself. The few times I do it, I do appreciate the fact that there might be people that are interested in what I have to say, and hopefully, more importantly, in the music that I'm putting out. I'm just trying to give back, to underground rap because it's given me so much. Over the last few decades, it's everything to me. And the friends that I've made and the good people. It seems that the assholes and the dickheads, they kind of get weeded out over the years,
I
and
love it.
there's a solid group of really good people left. So I really appreciate the opportunity to get to work with people and to get to know people like that, um, and to be able to create with them, which is special. So yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, good. Hey, thanks again. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I look forward to putting this interview out, brother. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it.